It was deliberately meant to be a sort of snapshot, not a how to get there in-depth travel piece, but just a sort of like a holiday snap, but taking us into a particular location, whether that's deep sea diving in a part of the world or something that's slightly unusual and exotic. And the main lead on the paper, on the page, which might be perhaps 500 or 600 words, but it wouldn't be unknown to suddenly receive submitted cold call articles, perhaps 2 or 3 or even 4,000 words long, which physically we couldn't have published even if we wanted to. And I think you'll find that editors are quite unforgiving about such things, although it feels a bit mean when they say so, and they won't probably explain why they've rejected something. But it'll often be a practical reason, like sheer length, or in some cases, of course, the work's not presented professionally. I mean, these days there's no excuse for anything being submitted handwritten, really, for publication. So the combination of a 5,000 word handwritten in capitals travel feature is unlikely to succeed. Taking a step further beyond that, I mean, obviously that's perhaps a self-evident sort of example of an article that would be everyone would inappropriate to submit. But it's strange how many of the pieces that people will submit as manuscripts to papers and magazines are sent to the wrong person, are inappropriate in some way in terms of the taste or content of that magazine, are too long, are on subjects that have been covered before. And if they do cover a subject that might be suitable, perhaps simply don't cover it in a way that's original or ingenious enough to actually attract the editor's attention. So I think there are probably a handful of obvious tips where you could explain why some articles are bound to be rejected. It's slightly harder to perhaps come up with the winning formula that says how to actually guarantee that you're going to have every chance of success. But I think clearly, psychologically, the starting point is to produce something that the readers of a particular publication would read. Because that inevitably means, and that's all an editor is looking for. They're looking for an exciting, original, interesting feature or news item that they know that their readers will appreciate. So, I mean, obviously something that we suggest from day one that people start doing, if they haven't done already, is looking at different publications, a little bit of market research, if you like, to try to find out more about the sort of person that reads that publication, in terms of, you can often, from the advertisements, the tone, style and so on, of the published work that's in it, get a pretty clear idea of the readership profile, the age of readers, their disposable income, and it's certainly true on the attendance courses here that we would say to anyone at the outset, wanting a career in writing, how on earth can you write anything of a features nature without knowing who it is you're writing for? Because the very words that you use are going to be dictated by the audience. So at an extreme level, perhaps if we get perhaps a slightly old-fashioned publication like The Lady, for older women, and at the other end of the age range, perhaps like the Free magazine in London, TNT, which is one for perhaps younger sort of Antipodeans and so on living in London. The sort of language that the one magazine will use will be more informal and slangy than the other, and that's clearly something that if you were starting off to write the story, it would be quite handy to know the type of phrasing that would be appropriate. Thanks, Barney, and welcome to others now to sort of chip in as we go with any sort of questions that you've got as we go along. So Barney was just asking, could you offer the same piece to different publications if they publish the same kind of piece? There are possibilities there. It depends, obviously. In the world of magazines, there's a competition between rival outlets would mean that you can't, it would be frowned on to obviously be trying to sell a similar kind of piece to publications that are in direct competition. It certainly might be fine to sell a syndicated piece, if you like. In other words, you're selling the same piece for a fixed fee, perhaps, to a number of different outlets. Normally, you would have to be guaranteeing geographical exclusivity, so that as long as their circulation areas didn't overlap, then that wouldn't necessarily be a problem. The difficulty for freelancers these days, of course, is that with publishing on the web, most papers, for example, want to publish stuff on the web, and that causes problems as far as geographical overlap. So it's got a little bit hard for syndicating something. Steinway's asked quite a good question about how much background research that you could do in terms of how far back you could go when pitching an idea